Ready to escape into a world of enchanting pixels? What is up, my peeps? And today we are going to be reading Alice in Wonderland. Alice was beginning to get very tired sitting by her sister on the riverbank and having nothing to do. Once or twice she had peeped into the book her sister was reading. Nice fourth wall reference there. But it had no pictures or conversations in it. And what is the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversations? You got that right. The hot day made her feel very sleepy as she sat stroking her cat. Is it Dinah? Dinah? I was going to say Dinah. When suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by her. Alice was not at all surprised to hear the rabbit say, "Oh, my fur and whiskers, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late." But when the rabbit actually took its watch out of its waistcoat pocket and looked at it, and then hurried on, Alice started to her feet. It flashed across her mind that she had never before seen a rabbit with either a waistcoat pocket. Oh my god, I can't say this right. Waist, not my bad. Waistcoat pocket or a watch to take out of it, and burning with curiosity, she ran after it just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole. In another moment, down went Alice after it, never once considering how in the world she was to get out again. The rabbit hole was very, very deep, but she fell very, very slowly and had plenty of time as she went down to look about and to look around her, or to look about her, not around her. The walls of the hole were lined with cupboards and shelves, here and there. She saw maps and pictures hung on pegs. She took down a jar from one of the shelves as she passed. It was labeled Orange Marmalade, but to her great disappointment, it was empty. Down, down, down. Would the fall ever come to an end? Suddenly, thump, thump. Down she came upon a heap of sticks and dry leaves. The fall was over. Alice was not a bit hurt, and she jumped to her feet in a moment. Before her was another long passage. The white rabbit was still in sight, hurrying down it. Away went Alice like the wind. She was close behind the rabbit, but when she turned a corner, it was no longer to be seen. Alice was in a long hall with doors all around it, but they were all locked. Behind a curtain, there was one small door, and when Alice peeked through its keyhole, she saw a lovely garden. The doorknob of this door startled Alice by speaking to her. "You're much too big to get through. Simply impassable." "You mean impossible," said Alice. "No," said the doorknob, "impassable. Nothing's impossible. Try the bottle on that table next to the gold little key." Alice took the bottle, which was labeled, "Drink me." But the wise little girl was not going to do that in a hurry. She looked first to make sure it wasn't marked. It wasn't marked poison. For, Alice told herself, if you drink from a bottle marked poison, it's sure to disagree with you sooner or later. This bottle had no such warning, so Alice drank it, and found herself growing smaller and smaller and smaller until she was only 10 inches high, just the right size for going through the door to the garden. But she had left the key on the table. "Try the box," said the doorknob, and Alice noticed a little box marked "Eat Me" on the floor. When she nibbled the cookie inside of it, she immediately grew bigger and bigger and bigger until her head struck against the roof of the hall. "Curious, sir, cried Alice. "Goodbye, feet." When she stopped growing, she had become more than 9 feet high. She at once took up the little golden key, but now, of course, she was much too big for the door to the garden. Then Alice began to cry. She cried and cried until there was a great pool of tears. She saw the little bottle bobbing on the water and quickly drank the few drops remaining in it. Immediately, she shrank to a tiny size and fell into the empty bottle. Riding safely within the bottle, Alice was swept on a wave of her own tears through the keyhole. With the help of several strange creatures she encountered, Alice crawled out of the bottle and set off to explore the new land to search for the white rabbit. On her first adventure, she met 2 fat, quarrelsome brothers, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, who insisted on reciting poems to her. First they did the Walrus and the Carpenter, and Alice listened politely. When it was over, she wanted to leave, but the Tweedle twins insisted on another recitation. I think that's how you say that. Father William. When it was over, she wanted to leave, but the Tweedle twins insisted on another recitation. Father William. While they were reciting the third verse, Alice quietly slipped away. Soon she came upon a neat little house with a door of which was a light brass plate with the name W. Rabbit engraved upon it. Then the upstairs shutters flew open, and the White Rabbit himself appeared. It called out, "Why, Mary Ann, what are you doing here? Run in this moment and fetch me my gloves." The White Rabbit hurried out of the house and waited impatiently while Alice searched inside for the gloves. She found a cookie jar labeled "Take One," so she did. Next thing she knew, Alice was growing again. She grew so huge that her arms and legs burst through the windows and doors. And she filled the little house until finally she split it apart. The White Rabbit, seeing the ruination of his home, cried out, "Help! Monster! There's a monster in my house!" Its cries brought a dodo and a lizard, both of whom tried to get Alice out of the house, but with no success. It was Alice herself who spied a carrot growing in the garden. "I wonder what will happen if I eat it," she thought. And, reaching a giant hand out of the window, she picked it. As soon as she took a nibble, she became small again, but by that time, the White Rabbit had run off muttering, I'm late! The Queen will be so angry. Oh no, can't wait, goodbye, hello! I'm late! Little Alice tried to follow the rabbit through the garden, but it was too fast for her again. Noticing a cloud of smoke, Alice traced it to a large mushroom on which a caterpillar sat, contentedly blowing smoke rings as it puffed on its hookah. "Who are you?" the caterpillar demanded. When it saw the girl, and exactly, "What is your problem?" "Well," Antisat answered, exactly. This, I should like to be a little larger, sir. "Why?" the caterpillar demanded, blowing a beautiful question mark out of smoke. "Well," said Alice, 3 inches is such a wretched height." The caterpillar, insulted at these words, said angrily, "I am exactly 3 inches high, and it's a very good height indeed." And before Alice could apologize, the caterpillar had disappeared in a thick cloud of its own smoke. In its place, a butterfly appeared. "By the way," the butterfly said, resuming the conversation, for indeed the caterpillar had changed into the butterfly, "I will have another helpful hint for you. Eat one side of this mushroom and it'll make you grow taller, and the other side will make you go shorter." With that, it flew away. Alice nibbled from both sides of the mushroom until she had reached her normal size. "There," she sighed, "that's much better. I think I'll save these." And she pocketed 2 pieces of magic mushroom, 1 from each side. And now Alice found herself in a dark forest with no idea where to go to find the White Rabbit. The signs posted on the trees only added to her confusion. Looking about, she was startled to see a Cheshire Cat sitting on a burrow of a tree, grinning down at her. And since it had very long claws and a great many teeth, she felt it ought to be treated with respect. "Cheshire Puss," she began timidly, "won't you please tell me which way I ought to go from here?" "That depends on where you want to go," said the cat. "I don't much care," said Alice. Alice answered, "I'm looking for the White Rabbit." "Well," said the cat, "in that direction lives a hatter, and in that direction lives a March Hare. They're both mad." Alice looked frightened. "We're all mad here," the cat said. "I'm mad, you're mad, or you wouldn't have come here." Then the Cheshire Cat began to vanish quite slowly, beginning with the end of its tail and ending with its grin, which remained some time after the rest of it had gone. "Well, I've often seen a cat without a grin," thought Alice. "But a grin without a cat, it's the most curious thing I ever saw in my life. More like the most creepiest." Anyway, Alice then decided to walk in the direction of the March Hare's house. A table was set out under the tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was fast asleep between them, and the other 2 were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it and talking over its head. They were having an unbirthday party. When they saw Alice coming, they cried out, "No room! No room!" "There's plenty of room," said Alice indignantly, sitting down in an armchair at the one end of the table. It was the maddest tea party Alice had ever attended. What with changing seats and changing cups every few minutes, and the Hare and the Hatter trying to stuff the poor Dormouse into a teapot, and the conversation making no sense whatsoever. Alice was going more and more bewildered. Abruptly, the Hatter took his watch out of his pocket and asked, "What day of the month is it?" Alice thought a bit and then said, "The 4th. 2 days slow," sighed the Hatter, shaking his watch and then holding it to his ear. "I told you butter wouldn't suit the works," he added, looking angrily at the March Hare. "It was the best butter," the March Hare meekly replied. "Yes, but some crumbs have gotten in as well," the Hatter grumbled. "You shouldn't have put it with the bread knife." Turning to Alice, he asked, "Do you think some tea might help it?" "Really? Now you ask me," said Alice, very much confused. "I don't think—" "Then you shouldn't talk," said the Hatter. This piece of rudeness was more than Alice could bear. She got up in great disgust and walked off. "I will find that white rabbit," she thought angrily, "and ask him how to get home. I've had quite enough of this place." Just then she noticed a little path between tall hedges. She followed it and soon found herself in a beautiful garden among bright flower beds and cool fountains. A large rose tree stood near the entrance of the garden. The roses growing on it were white, but 3 playing card gardeners were busily painting them red. When Alice asked them why, the 3 of clubs answered, "We painted white roses by mistake. The queen, she likes them red. If she saw white, she'd raise a fuss, and each of us would quickly lose his head." At that moment, the 2 of clubs called out, "The queen! The queen!" The 3 gardeners immediately threw themselves flat on their faces. There were sounds of many footsteps, and Alice looked round, eager to see the queen. Soldiers and courtiers, among them the White Rabbit, formed a grand procession. There we go. And last of all came the King and the Queen of Hearts. When they reached Alice, the Queen said severely, "Who is this?" No one answered. "Idiots," said the Queen, tossing her head impatiently. "What's your name, child? Look up, speak nicely." Alice courtesized, I think is how you pronounce that, and replied politely. But, she thought, they're only a pack of cards, after all. I needn't be afraid of them. So when the Queen demanded to know who were the 3 cards lying on their faces, Alice, surprised at her own courage, answered, "How should I know? It's no business of mine." The Queen turned crimson with fury. "Off with her head!" she screamed. "Nonsense," said Alice very loudly and decidedly, and the Queen was silent. "Can you play croquet?" shouted the Queen. "Yes!" shouted Alice. "Come on, then!" roared the Queen. Alice was given a flamingo for a mallet and a hedgehog for a ball. The players all played at once without waiting their turns, quarreling and fighting while the Queen went about stamping and shouting, "Off with his head!" or "Off with her head!" in the midst of the turmoil. The Cheshire Cat appeared. Then it disappeared, and appeared again, somewhere else. The Queen was provoked by its pranks, and since Alice talked to the cat and seemed to be its friend, the Queen demanded that she be put on trial. Alice was then put in the prisoner's dock, where she became truly alarmed about what might happen to her. The White Rabbit, late as ever, read the charges. Then the Queen banged her fist on the bench and shouted, "Sentence first, verdict after. Off with her head." Alice, really frightened, put her hand in her apron pocket and felt something there. It was the mushroom. She popped both pieces into her mouth, one after the other. Suddenly she grew to her full size, and the tiny cards jabbing her ankles were nothing to fear. Alice picked up a handful and flipped them away. "Why, you're nothing but a pack of cards," she said. At this, the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down upon her. Alice gave a little scream and tried to beat them off. She found herself lying beneath a tree on the riverbank, with Dinah in her lap. Some leaves were fluttering around and fluttering down upon her face. "Wake up, Alice dear," said her sister. "What a long sleep you've had." "Oh, I've had such a curious dream," said Alice. "A dream of Wonderland. Well, now run in for your tea, it's getting late." So Alice got up and ran off, thinking what a wonderful dream it had been, all on a happy summer day. Here's some history about the book and movie. You can pause here if you'd like to read more. Oh, this is a good one. Our next story stop in the next video will be Bambi. So, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Talk to y'all later.